Hey everybody, welcome to the first day of the Content Writing Masterclass. If you don't already know, my name is Daryl. I'm a Copyblogger partner, and I'm excited to be here today with Copyblogger Editor-in-Chief, Stephanie Flaxman. Stephanie, hey, how you doing?
Hello, Daryl. Hello, everyone.
I'm excited. Okay, so it looks like we have people pouring in still, pouring in. We have like 30 people. I'm so used to doing webinars where there's hundreds of people. So I'm like, people are pouring in. All 30 of you are here. Hey, if you can see me, hear me, and you're with us, just say hi. Let us know where you're from. We're going to be hanging out all week this week. Super excited about it. 40 people here right now. Go down to the chat. Make sure that you select the all panelists and attendees section. Otherwise, I'm the only one who can see it. So Jim and Umar and everyone else who hasn't done that already, make sure you say it from panelists and attendees, not just panelists. Hey guys, awesome. We have people Baltimore, Houston, Los Angeles. Ooh, Los Angeles. You're in Los Angeles.
I
Pennsylvania,
am.
Greece, New York City, Murfreesboro, my home. I'm in Nashville, so close by. What's up? Murfreesboro. And a couple people from New York City, Pittsburgh, Southern California, London, Chicago area, Tallahassee, Boise, Italy, Connecticut, Chicago, all around. Amazing. This is my dog. He's having a good time sniffing the door. So we're hanging out this week. It's going to be fun. Stephanie, I'm going to hand it over to you. Stephanie's going to come on in a second. She's going to share her screen, go through slides. We're going to teach for about 40 minutes today. And then we're going to do questions at the end of this call. We'll go about an hour. If we go a little bit over, we'll do that as well. Everything is recorded. If for some reason you have to leave, we'll record this, send out the recording later tonight to you guys. So you can have that. You'll have access to those recordings forever, so you can watch it as many times as you want as well. But everybody should be at home, safe and sound. So I don't know where else you might have to go because we're all at home in this together right now for this week. So hope you guys are safe and sound all at home and everybody's healthy. Stephanie, I'll pass it over to you. I'm going to shut off my video and mic, but I'll be here in the chat. If you guys have questions, please let me know. Yes, these slides will be with the recording as well. And if you guys have questions for the end, you can go to the Q&A section and start dropping those questions into the Q&A section, and I'll monitor those. And then when we have that time come, I'll read those questions out and Stephanie can answer them. So Stephanie, have at it. Excited.
Thank you, Daryl. I am going to immediately start sharing my screen, and then I'm going to start talking, but I want to make sure that you guys can have access to the presentation before we get started. So I'm moving. If you guys saw the call we did last week, which I'm assuming many of you have, my little version of me, my little video, was blocking most of the slides. So I had a little trouble reading all of them, but I fixed that for today. So I can see everything that we're talking about. And hopefully I'll be a little smoother than that call. But thanks everyone for being here. As Daryl mentioned, I was wondering how much I wanted to, or even needed to, bring up the elephant in the Zoom room, the elephant in the world right now. And I thought it'd be relevant to talk about just in terms real briefly of my appreciation of you being here right now. Because under normal circumstances, I would be, or typical circumstances, ordinary circumstances, I would be really appreciative of you being here today and this week. But as Daryl mentioned, I live in Los Angeles, and like many of you, things are a little unusual right now. Everything is closed here. We have been advised and ordered really to stay at home, like so many places in the US and around the world. And nothing, yeah, like I said, nothing's open except for essential stores like grocery stores and drugstores and things like that. So, so my weekend was a little weird and out of the ordinary because I really lean on my weekends a lot for balance and to get out and to do other things that I like to do. And I didn't have that. So I got to focus on this wonderful opportunity today and this week to be here. And we're so fortunate to be together today and that we can do things like this. So I just want to express my gratitude for you being here and how great that we get to talk about all of my favorite nerdy writer stuff, and that I get to share stuff that I'm so passionate about with you. So I just have on the screen right now where you can stay up to date with the things that I do regularly. My copy blogger author page where all my new posts are, as well as my archives that go back to 2013. So if you want a lot of my writing for fun or to study, because I'm really big on studying other writers as well. Things that you like, things that you don't like, you can learn so much from that. So those are my articles for reference, and my YouTube channel that I've been posting about once a week for the past year. So that's where you can find more from me. And we are on day 1 of our 5 days together. Today is going to be about the art of drafting, which is my favorite nerdy writing thing. I mean, they're all, I can't really pick a favorite, but I love drafting, and you will find out why today. So as Daryl said, he can be interacting with you guys right now if you have questions, but I'm going to be answering them or the most relevant ones for today's session at the end after I'm done talking. So feel free to save those. I'd love if you're thinking of them, and definitely jot them down. And if you need to talk to Daryl about something, he'll be there, but know that I'm leaving plenty of time for that. So we'll hopefully fit it into an hour and get a lot in. And you'll also get a copy of the slides that are on the screen. I love taking notes anyways. It helps me learn, but you don't have to scramble, in other words, to write anything down, because you're going to get a copy of that, as well as some supplementary materials that I'm going to show as well. So once again, I'm Stephanie. I'm Copyblogger's editor-in-chief. And I just wanted to talk before we get into it. I have a lot of, because this is the first day, a lot of kind of foundational information I wanted to go over. So I wanted to talk about my approach to teaching and how today and the rest of the week is going to go, because I found that a lot of continuing education courses mimic or use a sort of college or university style of teaching. And to me, that looks like information overload and theory and a lot of things that are forgettable. And I'm not knocking any of that, especially if you pay for a college or a university education. You want everything. You're paying for everything. And that is even an environment that I enjoy learning in. I'm kind of like, give me it, give me it, give me it. I just want to like get everything up front, absorb what I can. And I'm not even knocking forgettable, because sometimes I think there's a lot of value in forgetting something that you've learned and rediscovering it later when you have more experience and more knowledge. So you look at that thing that you forgot about kind of like a happy accident. You can look at it with a different perspective than the first time that you've learned it. So I'm not knocking that style of teaching. It's just when I have wanted to learn a specific skill, like I said, in a continuing education style course, all of that stuff isn't really what I'm looking for, because I'm looking for more results that I can apply to my work and can really have a more transformative effect in what I'm doing. So my approach for this week, and the way that I like teaching in general, is very minimal and practical and memorable. So what that means is my goal is that you'll regularly use everything we cover over the next 5 days. I want it to be applicable to what you're actually doing. I want you to see a transformation in your work when we're done spending our time together. But that's even though you'll never stop learning how to write well. As much experience as I have over the past 20 years, where I've been writing pretty much every day, I'm constantly learning how to be a better writer. And that comes from practice and doing, and there's no substitute for the practice of writing. So But at the same time, you can still learn new things that will have an immediate impact on what you do. So as I just said, writing is a practice. And I've found that all my favorite activities are practices. Other things that I like are yoga and meditation. And writing is really like yoga and meditation. There's no end point in any of those activities. You don't say, I accomplished yoga or I accomplished meditation. You don't achieve those things. You don't accomplish them. They're just ongoing things that if you care about doing them, because those activities enhance your life and your work, you'll see growth and you'll see evolution. So something as an example of this, I once heard an actress who was talking about the craft of acting. She said, you never become a great actor. And what she meant by that was no matter how good of a performance you did in the last movie that you were in, the last character that you played, when you start a new movie or a TV show or play or whatever you're doing acting wise, you're starting from scratch. It doesn't matter how good your last performance was. And I really related this to writing, because no matter how good of an article you wrote last week, when you have to write something new this week, it feels like you're essentially starting from scratch. None of that work, if you're writing about a different topic, is related to what you're doing this week. And yeah, it feels like you're starting from scratch in some ways, but you're not really, because when you practice writing, you learn your process, you develop skills, and you develop confidence that contributes to your evolution, your growth, and your improvement. So there's truth in that statement of you never become a great actor, and there's not truth, because you really do get closer. It's just you're always getting closer. There's no ultimate goal, but you're always getting closer. And she was saying that's why she likes acting. And I think that's kind of why I like writing too. Again, going back to all my favorite things are practices, and it's always challenging. It's still challenging for me, but this week, not just today, but the whole week, there's just a lot of templates and things that you can use to kind of kickstart the process, and it all becomes somewhat second nature. There's always that exciting element of, I'm not sure what I'm doing, you're starting from scratch, but you have these sort of foundational materials that you can go back to and say, oh, I actually do know what I'm doing. If I follow this template and this process, things are going to fall into place a lot quicker. So here's a little overview of the week. We're on day 1, obviously, and day 1 and day 2 are sort of bookends. They're sort of paired, and day 3 and day 4 are more closely related, but they all build on each other. And then if there's anything left that we haven't covered over the first 4 days, I'm going to be available during our 5th day together to go over any of those extra questions or things that you just might think about during the week that you forget to mention. I always think of things later. So I think that day is a really good day to bring it home and for us to get together one more time and talk about anything that we might have forgot to talk about earlier in the week. And so how to use this workshop. If all you want to do is just pay attention to what I'm saying and pay attention to the slides and absorb, I like absorbing a lot in one phase of learning, you can do that. You don't have to actually physically do anything. The way that I'm going to be teaching, you could just absorb what's going on. But for the first 3 days, I'm going through actual exercises. So if you do plan on attending live, after today, you can go and do what we talk about and bring it to tomorrow's lesson, and you'll have something to reference with the writing lesson that I'm talking about tomorrow. And then if you want to do tomorrow's lesson about writing and bring it to our 3rd day about editing, you'll have something to reference when I'm talking about editing on our third day. So it's designed for you to do that if you want to, but if you just don't feel like doing that right now, you're going to get all of these calls recorded and sent to you. So you could go through this course later and do that. So there are a lot of different options. There's a lot of flexibility for how you can and want to use the course. And then on day 4, I think it's so much more helpful to see actual examples. I think you can learn so much from examples. So day 4 is going to be me showing you ways to strengthen up writing that's dull. And I'm going to go through a lot of different common types of writing mistakes, like how a punctuation error can affect your writing, how word choice can affect your writing, and just a lot of the general categories. And then you can be aware of them in your own writing. And as I mentioned on our call last week, I'm a big fan of keeping a checklist of common things that are either actual errors or things that you just want to change in your writing. So that day will be helpful for putting together your own personal checklist of what you want to review in your own writing before you publish. So that is that. So we can get into today's topic, which is drafting. So what is drafting? Drafting is how you develop your idea into content that others will care about too. And there's sometimes a much more of a difference than we actually think. And that is the specific lesson and example that we're going to be talking about today. So drafting is really pre-writing and research. And if you want immediately the writing process today, you need to leave enough time for this. When you have trouble writing, it's typically because you haven't performed enough drafting and enough research. You don't know what your main point is. You don't know who you're talking to. And that makes it really difficult to actually start writing something that other people will care about, even if you have this idea that you really like. It doesn't always translate into something that you can write about easily, or that is even worth writing about. So drafting really helps you cut out any fluffy ideas or anything that really isn't going to serve who you are talking to. And also, why it's really important to leave enough time for drafting is you'll get other content ideas during the drafting process that you can save for later. I know sometimes I go off on tangents and I want to explore those even though it's not what I'm immediately working on, and you know, that's okay too. Sometimes you need to just follow your momentum. But there's no substitute for the practice, and there's really no substitute for sitting down to work, because I do work in my head a lot, and I write in my head a lot, but when I actually like sit down and have working time, I start getting ideas that I really don't have unless I dedicate the time to that drafting and to my work in that way. So this just sort of addresses a question that I get a lot. You know, how often should you write? How often should you publish? And my recommendation in general is that you should write every day, even if it's only for a short amount of time, like 20 minutes or even less. If you only have 10 minutes, you can get a lot done in 10 minutes if it's a focused 10 minutes. A focused 10 minutes and an unfocused 10 minutes it's a world of difference. So so keep that in mind. I just think the habit of writing every day is super important for developing your skill set. But then publishing is different because you don't want to publish everything you write typically. So I would say publish on a schedule that allows you to share your best work, and that is a regular schedule. And I wrote, as you can see on the screen, once a blank, and that blank is not a mistake because what regular looks like is different to everyone. So once a week is a really strong place to start if you want to publish once a week, but you could do once a month if that is what you can commit to, if that is what works for you, you could publish twice a month, which I don't have a twice a blank on the screen. But the point of publishing is really picking a schedule and sticking to it and committing to it, because then it forces you to take all that writing that you're doing every day and become your own editor in a way, in terms of curating and picking out the best things that you write, and improving them to a place where you feel great about sharing them with your audience. So now we're going to get into the drafting process. I'm going to take a breath because I talk fast. And I realize that I'm going to try to work on that for the rest of this. Hopefully not too fast, but we're just going to take a second here before we move into the rest of the drafting process. So, like I said, your content idea needs to be immediately paired with who does this idea serve and what do they need. A lot of the times when we create content that ends up not resonating with the people who we want to attract to our content platform is because we have just immediately continued with an idea without thinking about who it serves and what they need, and we just write about it because we feel like it. And if you're doing that for practice, I'm never going to not knock writing practice. I'm never going to say that you shouldn't be doing that, but I'm talking about you spending a lot of time with the intention of creating content to build an audience, and people just aren't finding it, and they're not paying attention to it, and they're not subscribing, and they're not sharing. So if all of those things are your goals, people finding you, people subscribing to you, people sharing, just continuing with your first content idea is going to keep you stuck and unfortunately frustrated. And that's a huge reason why a lot of content creators give up. Because if no one finds you, if people aren't paying attention to what you're doing, you think, this is such a waste of time. I'm spending so much effort and time on these things that really matter to me, but nobody's paying attention. And for good reason, people give up, because that's a frustrating experience. So starting today, pairing your original content idea with who this is going to serve and what they need is going to transform what you actually spend your time on in terms of content that you're publishing to build an audience. So you write for one person's problem, need, or desire. When you have that content idea and you start thinking in terms of who this is going to serve, you're talking about one specific person that you want to address, because that little shift in your mindset is going to change the language that you use. That's really going to form more of a bond with the people that you want to form a bond with. If you're thinking in terms of a general group of people, there aren't going to be that many specifics. Even if you're talking about a really specific topic, you want to get as narrow as possible with who you're talking to for each specific piece of content you create. And in the writing lesson, which is day 2, I'm going to be talking about how you pick your content type and exactly how to narrow that down. That's a little beyond the scope of what I'm talking about today. This is just sort of the setup of you're going to be talking to one individual person when you write your content. So your content idea and what does this person need are kind of, well, I'm just mimicking with my hands what's on the screen right now, but you're drafting in the space between your original content idea and what that person actually needs. And that's going to expand and evolve and transform what that original content idea is. So when you are drafting, here are just basic terms, basic things to empathize with the person that you're thinking about. So what does that person think, feel, see, and do? And these are different categories that you can fill in a simple empathy map, like I have on the screen right now. I also have what is on the screen right now in a separate PDF that you'll be getting, that you can print out, or you can use digitally as well. It is a super simple thing that brings out new ideas about what you should be talking about in your content that you're not going to get to if you're thinking about more of a general audience who would be interested in your topic, or if you haven't really thought about the struggles and the pain points of the person that you're addressing. So yeah, it's super simple, but it creates a huge difference in your content. So before we get to questions, I just want to go through a quick example of what that looks like based on content that I created fairly recently. So you can actually see what that transformation looks like all the way through to the complete piece of content, even though, again, I just really wanted to set up today with drafting and why I dedicated today with drafting. So I had a content idea for my YouTube channel, and I was working on something else. Like I said, you get other content ideas while you're doing different work. And so I was working on something else, and this idea popped into my head. It was like things writers don't write, or things professional writers don't write. And I thought that sounds kind of fun. You know, I talked to writers, and I was thinking here in terms, I don't even know what I was thinking of what this idea was going to be. And that is very common when you get a content idea, because it could have meant a couple different things. It could have meant actual phrases in your writing, or it could have meant things that writers don't write. But I mean, like in terms of correspondence or in communication, I wasn't really sure. And that's, yeah, and that's what happened. So I'm just calling it for this example, things professional writers don't write. So if I'm pairing that original fuzzy, I'm not sure idea, but I want to do that with the necessary concepts of who does this serve, what do they need, I get a bunch of question marks, like I just demonstrated. I'm not really sure, and I hit an immediate obstacle of that content really wouldn't be helpful. There are too many different topics, styles, and audiences for it to work, because there are a lot of writers who have built huge platforms with the type of writing that I don't personally like. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't consider it good writing, and yet these people have huge audiences. And who am I to say you shouldn't write this or write that? I think there are general lessons, of course, about writing, and there are always going to be exceptions. But in general, it just didn't seem like, or my idea was too general, and it wouldn't have been helpful for the audience who I wanted to serve on my YouTube channel. And it was just one of those, oh, I'm excited about this, but I'm not sure how to actually do it. So pairing that, your content idea, with who does this serve and what is and what do they need, is really a checkpoint for yourself to find out earlier rather than later that your idea is going to be problematic. Because if I didn't have that checkpoint, I could have continued with the idea and published it, and it wouldn't have helped anyone, or people would have thought, well, this doesn't really make a lot of sense, because look at all these people who do exactly what you're advising not to do, and they have huge audiences. It just would have caused a lot of frustrations. But I had that checkpoint that helped me identify this obstacle that's on the screen right now. So I could still be working with my original sort of cloudy idea, but make it something that was actually going to work. So I went back to, who do I serve? What do they need? And my YouTube channel serves nonfiction writers who want to build writing businesses. And I do advice for growing sustainable creative careers. Those are two main themes that I talk about on my YouTube channel. So, okay, we're getting somewhere. Before I did any work that would have gone to waste, if I continued with my original idea, I immediately started narrowing it down. So I could draft all my new ideas in the space between things professional writers don't write and advice for growing sustainable creative careers. So all my new ideas came from this very focused space. And my writing is very sloppy. And this isn't a picture from me drafting for that exact script. This picture is actually on Copyblogger. It's in an article I wrote. The URL is on the screen, copyblogger.com/bad-writer. And I used this image as an example in that article. Really, it's about drafting. And as I wrote, that's on the screen as well. My handwriting is sloppy. There's no logical order. It's simply what I need to start crafting my thoughts. And it eventually led to the post you're reading right now. So if you want to see what all of those messy thoughts turned into, you could read that full article, which is also, you know, it's about drafting. It's relevant to what we're talking about today. So drafting doesn't have to be pretty at all. I think the less pretty it is, the less you're worried about it being pretty, the more you can just focus on your good ideas. So I went to drafting in that new space between my original idea and how it was going to serve my audience and the video. And oh no, we're not there yet. I did more. Look at everything that I did. So here's an example of the empathy map that I did. And I would flesh it out more than what I have on the screen, but just in terms of time and I didn't need to give you that many excessive details here, but I wanted to show a little bit about what going through thinking, feeling, seeing, and doing looks like. So I took my original idea, thought about the person it's serving. What are they thinking? I want more clients. What are they feeling? It'd be great to have clients who respect my time and my work. What are they seeing? I see other people who have thriving creative careers. How do I do that? And what are they doing? They're taking any writing work that comes their way. Because when they're starting out, this happens to me, this happens to everyone. If you're starting out as a writer, you're not discriminating a lot about the writing work that you're getting or that you'll take. You're happy to take anything. That's a necessary part of the process. But I feel like even in that stage, we're always aiming towards, I want better clients. I want clients who really respect my work. I want clients who get me. I want clients I really get along with. We're aiming for that from the beginning, even if that's not what we're currently doing. So I kept all of that in mind, and I turned I write a script for videos, so even though I'm using videos as an example, this is writing. So I turned that into 7 phrases professional writers don't use, and I turned it into a video, and it's about phrases professional writers don't use when they're interacting with clients. And it's really positioning your writing business as something, so in a way that your clients respect you, and in a way that you demonstrate that you do really high quality work. So that is how I went through this exercise and turned it into a video that has the most views in recent history on my channel. That's another reason why I picked this, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't always do this process for all my videos because sometimes I just want to do a video. This video, I actually went through this process and it has a lot more views. and that's not an accident. And so I think it's just a really good example too. Look, I'm human. I don't always do this stuff. You're not always going to do this stuff. But having this process to come back to is just so helpful. Like when I am struggling, I'm so happy that I have all of this to fall back on. But sometimes I'm not struggling and I just have an idea and I run with it. And I'm not going to say that you can never do that because it happens. So I think that is the end of my example. And we're going to have some time for questions. Daryl, how you doing?
Hey, good. Hey, what if we went through this process with somebody? I think we have enough time to pick somebody and go through this process with them live. How does that sound?
Cool.
All right. If you want to volunteer for that, please go into the chat and tell me your original idea, and I'll pick somebody here in just a minute. But I think that'd be a fun way to like see your example and then kind of like do it live and kind of walk somebody through it. And we'll limit that to just a few minutes. So if you want to raise your hand for that, volunteer for that, go into the chat and just let me know your idea really quick. We will make that happen. Again, make sure you're doing that in the chat. That's where I'm watching right now. But Stephanie, thanks so much for that so far.
Should I stop sharing my screen? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's stop sharing the screen.
Okay, let's do that. Because there's, and if we need to reference something, I can go back, obviously. But here we are.
Cool. And then if you've dropped your idea down and you actually if you're okay with me bringing your audio on, please, if you're not okay with that, let me know, because I'm going to actually, whoever we pick, I'm going to bring their video on for a second here. Let's see. All right, Ted, I'm going to pick you. Let me find you, Ted. Ted. Let's see if this will work in a second.
Okay, dude. How about that?
Hey, Ted, you there?
Hey, I'm here.
Awesome. Ted, where are you from?
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Whoa.
So
awesome.
exciting place
Yeah.
to be from. Yeah.
Hi, Ted.
Welcome,
Thanks for
Ted.
being here. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for doing this.
Tell us the idea. Yes, the dog's right here. Everybody's saying hi, dog.
Hey. Well, I have a book project. I do a podcast where we talk about new business, like sales prospecting. And one of the struggles is that depending on the kind of business a person is in, they use different forms. Like some businesses you can make phone calls. Some businesses would be, more friendly to direct outreach. Others would be more friendly to indirect outreach. I don't know. So one of my struggles is like, damn it, do I have to redo this stupid book because I can't talk to both those people at the same time? I don't know. So that's one of the struggles I'm kind of grappling with.
Is it like a short form ebook? What type of?
It's going to be pretty decent size. I mean, it's going to be 175 pages or so. I mean, there's a bunch of material. I guess, well, I'm struggling with it. It could get too, it could, like you said earlier, it could get to be too big in some spots. But it's also like a workbook where it, shows people they can go through and answer questions and get to things they want to. But I don't know, maybe you can't, maybe it's too broad. My apologies. I guess I just have to decide.
I'm a fan of the Socratic method, so I'm just going to keep asking questions to help fine-tune my answers. You're providing lots of information. So who do you think you primarily wrote to already? And your main question is, oh no, do I have to keep redoing this because there are multiple avatars that I think I need to talk to, but I only talk to one? Is that's your question? Yeah,
I mean, because salespeople, and then small, like business owners, people who need new customers. One of the biggest reasons businesses fail is because they can't find prospects. And I'm kind of an adept at that in that world. I mean, I have, so I have a lot of insight to share to people about how to find new leads. But the trouble is there's just this, I don't know, I'm more of a direct response person than some of the indirect, which is kind of the world you live in, where you, like a blog is more of an indirect sort of a marketing tool. I don't know. I mean, just like, I guess we're just going to need to split and really go to my home, which is really the more the direct space. I guess I'm answering my own question.
Don't we always when we have the space to talk about it? I love it. No,
Yeah.
what I really think, I wouldn't say based on the advice that I gave today that you'd have to rewrite your whole book. Sometimes you have to, sometimes narrowing in on a very specific person, you don't only attract those people. So I don't think, okay, I have two parts of the answer. This is the first part of my answer. The second part is I have ideas for content that you can create to drive people to this book.
Okay.
So the first part of my answer has to do with a classic marketing example of, I think it's the Pepsi generation. If it's Coke, I'm going to feel really stupid, but I'm pretty sure it's Pepsi. And there's the Pepsi generation. This is an old marketing example of like, you're young and you're hip and you drink Pepsi. And they got very specific about who that audience was. But the ripple effect of that is that doesn't just appeal to the young hip people. A lot of people want to be the fun hip Pepsi generation. So you're not always turning off people if you get very specific, because it's not always who people actually are, it's who they aspire to be, or what they aspire to know or learn, or so. So I don't think you need to rewrite the whole book. But for content that attracts people to this book, I would definitely think that you have an opportunity to create different avatars and then create different content that appeals to those individual avatars, all with the goal of driving traffic to the book, who would help all those different people in some way. It's just you would use individual pieces of content to attract all the different types of people to the same book. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, it does. So you can almost just sort of, we use an expression, atomize, where you just take individual pieces and then promote those individually and have them do the attracting work that they can do to bring everybody to the greater body of work. Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. That's okay. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I love content series, especially, and what I mean by that is, maybe 4 to 8 pieces of content on a specific topic, but you could do that for each of the type of people that you think would like your book. And that helps you connect with those different personalities, even though you're talking about one general topic. So
Sure.
yeah, a lot of great content opportunities to promote ebooks.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I love that. Thanks, Ted, for your question. I'm gonna move you back out now,
Cool. Thank you.
and then get ready for other people. This is exactly what we did at ConvertKit. This is why I'm so excited about you talking about narrowing down on a very specific niche, because we created an email marketing platform for bloggers. And I know it was such an internal struggle for us for so long, because we were like, well, but so many other people do email marketing, not just bloggers. And we had all those people also as customers, but we really created content around the avatar of a blogger, even though we knew that bloggers were like the focal point that then had like, you're like the ripple effects to many other different types of people, like small business owners. And I think with Ted, you're exactly right. Focusing on probably the direct response crowd is going to get business owners excited, because they can learn those lessons and apply it to their own circumstances. So I love it. You know how passionate I am about the niche and the avatar. It's
Love the niche.
I'm super passionate about it, because I've been super successful in that. And I was seeing if I could pull this up really quickly. Give me 2 seconds, because there was a startup that I just saw the other day. Let's see if I can find it here. That does this exact same thing. I want to share my screen a little bit. Exactly what you were just talking about with their software. And it's super cool. But essentially they have one product. Goodness, I can't find it. They have one product, but they've identified 150 different sub niches, and they create all different content under these sub niches. So they've created 150 different avatars, And so it's an app that helps with freelancing with contracts and invoices. And it's on your iPhone. But they did like eyelash people, and they did like estheticians, and then they did like nail people. Like they've created specific content for each of these, like all these niches, like barbers, beard trimmers, like, but they were like very, very niche down. And what's happened is they've actually been able to create awesome SEO content because they were so niched as well. That's driven content. Anyways, somebody's asking to explain about an avatar. So let's do that next, because I think that's a good natural next step. Can you talk about what it means to create an avatar?
Sure. Yeah, I know this is, well, no, I won't talk about tomorrow's stuff yet, but yeah, I would go back to that empathy map, the thinking, feeling, doing, seeing. For me, that is, because even with the example that you were talking about, Daryl, like I love that example because I think it's so much, it's so similar to what we were talking about to help Ted out. But I'm referencing something that Daryl like just wrote, but an avatar can be so overwhelming. That's usually how you lose people. It's kind of how you lose me in a little bit, because you're like, well, where does this end? You know, you want to get so specific. So you're like, how do I even start? Where does this end? Am I actually going to do this? And that's actually why I used an empathy map for to help focus what I was teaching for today, because to me that takes the overwhelmingness of creating an avatar out, and you're really putting yourself in that other person's shoes. So just in general, the avatar is who is going to be reading, who is the individual person who's going to be reading this content? Who are they on a human level? They're not some robotic reader. You're not getting robots coming to your content. You're getting actual people with feelings. They do things. They eat breakfast. They either like working out after work or they hate working out after work. They're either readers and they're not readers. There's so many human level things. I have a good example in tomorrow's class, so I'm excited. We'll get back to this. But there's so many aspects to the personalities who are reading your content. So instead of just thinking, I'm writing for an audience of people who like health food, I write a health blog. And I'm writing to people who are looking for healthy recipes. That would be the general topic and the general group that you're covering, but you want to think about Sally. You know, what does Sally do when she wakes up? What are her actual struggles with finding healthy food? The avatar helps you get to the actual pain points people are struggling with that you can help them with, their actual problems. Well, Sally wakes up and she's had a Cliff Bar, a chocolate chip Cliff Bar for breakfast every morning for the past 3 years. Sally is me, by the way, because that is what I eat for breakfast. And she's really wondering how she can make the transition into making herself have a healthier breakfast. So I'm just, you know, I want to get to more questions, but I hope that just gives you an idea of where the avatar is getting into the mind of the specific people reading your content, so you can craft the language who will speak to them. If someone wrote an article about how to transform from eating a chocolate chip Cliff Bar for breakfast every morning into making yourself a simple healthy breakfast in 10 minutes, I would read that article. But that's only because someone got into my mind. And that wouldn't only appeal to me. That is how specific you need to be, but you're not only going to appeal to me. That's going to appeal to your general audience of people who are looking for healthier food to eat.
And this is the paradox of good content writing and of good business, actually, is that the more singularly the focus, the more expansive your reach is going to be. And it is a paradox because you think it's going to be the opposite of that, right? Like the more general and broad I am, the more people I'm going to reach. You just end up writing weak content. You write unclear content, weak content. I just was actually on a coaching call right before this one with one of my awesome clients. And she said, I just think about the 12,000 people that are on my email list and I try to write to them. And I'm like, that's your problem. Like, so we actually went through this exact process. So yes, I think people are saying like, Avatars are specific. You can even name them. I would suggest naming them. I would suggest having a picture that you can like access pretty easily. And if you started a business, if you're the type of person who started a business to solve a problem that you had, your avatar is a younger version of yourself. And that'll make it really easy to empathize and really easy to understand the pain points, the desires, all those pieces on the empathy map that Stephanie talked about. And the example that I used again is Nathan from ConvertKit. Is Nathan created ConvertKit for himself and then started selling it to other people. So it was really easy for Nathan to think about the content he was wanting to creating because it was a younger version. It was a 3-year younger version of Nathan who he was talking to. And so if you're the type of person who's created a business or a brand around solving a problem that you had, and now you have other people, clients or customers around that, the younger version of yourself is your avatar. All right, questions. Go ahead.
People are also saying in the chat persona, and that is such a great word that helps, I think, clarify a little bit more too. It's, you know, specific individual personas. So yeah.
This question is from Jim, and he asks, how much time are you supposed to spend in pre-writing and research for a typical 1,000 to 1,500 word post, especially if blogging is not your sole or even main job, but a means to a greater end? That's a good question.
I would start by saying, unless you need to write 1,000 to a 1,500 word blog post, don't think in terms of that. I think your post should be as long as it needs to be. And if it only is 750 words, it's not like you haven't reached your goal. If you clearly communicate your message and it's serving who you want to talk to with that specific piece of content, you don't need to put kind of some arbitrary word count on your post. And that's going to affect how much time you actually need for the drafting phase. And I think I didn't give this disclaimer, but I think it's a great opportunity, Jim, with her question, that we could get too stuck in the drafting phase as well and not actually move forward and publish. And there's so much value in getting to that publish stage. So I would say just to, because I want to answer your question with an actual answer. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, even though it is going to depend. I think if you're giving yourself, I'm going to do this on a weekly timeline. So say you publish a post to serve this greater goal that you're working towards on Monday. Every Monday, you publish something for yourself. And therefore, the week before, you're working on the post for the next week. I would spend a day on drafting before you write. And that doesn't mean 8 hours a day on drafting. It means when you dedicate your time to writing for that day, let's just say the Monday prior, you're always working a week ahead. So the Monday prior to you publishing is your drafting day, and maybe Tuesday is your writing day. Wednesday is your editing day. And then, you know, you can give yourself a little break before Monday, between Thursday and Sunday to fine tune, to do anything, you know, you have a little more space in there after the bulk of your work is done. But I would draft on a different day than you sit down to write. If you know you're doing a highly researched post that is going to be very long, drafting might take a week. So it really does vary, but I'd say on a typical blog post, let's say 500 to 1,500 words, a day of your writing time.
Cool. Toby has a great question here. Is there some sort of framework to make sure that we have all the building blocks of your draft, something like the AIDA framework? Is there something that you use to make sure you have all the building blocks of your draft?
I'll default to an empathy map to keep it simple. Tomorrow in the writing lesson, it's going to be more how to turn your draft into a piece of writing that other people understand, because my drafts do not look like things that other people understand. And that's how I sort of differentiate the writing process, or differentiate the drafting process from the writing process. So tomorrow there will be some templates of how you turn all of this messy stuff, because my drafts are messy, into something that flows, that is cohesive, that someone else can comprehend. So my drafts are complete when I have all of the spaces of the different aspects of an empathy map. And then in the one that we're going to be sharing with you, there's a separate, besides think, feel, see, and do, there's a separate part for ideas. And so when all those 5 things are complete is when I feel confident enough to move on to writing.
Cool. We have lots of questions about the avatar, so I'm going to save that for the end. So is a draft an outline? What's the difference between a draft and an outline?
I'd say I would use them interchangeably. If you get to outlining already during the drafting process, I think that is a bonus.
This is my draft from my post yesterday.
Oh,
well, I'm
nice.
posting
It
tomorrow,
does kind
yeah.
of look like an outline.
Yeah. So for me, I just do it a little differently. Like you were like all over the place. My brain works a little differently. So I just do like thought 1, thought 2, thought 3, thought 4, thought 5. I just write a bunch of thoughts that kind of make sense as I'm like explaining it in my head. I just write it out on a notepad. So that is my drafting, is that to begin with, is like just getting it out. And then I know what points I might need to do research on, like where to fill in the gaps. I get really clear on that piece of it. But I have these yellow legal pads and I just buy them by like dozen, and I just like go through them and I just write notes on that and draft that way. And then I actually will go to a Google Doc and write it out after that.
That outline is more part of what I consider in the writing process. Like tomorrow, you'll see more of that. And that is, again, just to sort of differentiate the importance of research before you even have anything to flesh out into an outline. So I said that they're kind of the same, and it depends on the person, because like you just said, that's a really great example, Daryl, of what your drafting looks like. But to me, if there was like stages, it'd be drafting, outline, writing.
Yeah. And I think research, where would research fall in that? In the drafting
Under
phase?
the drafting, yeah.
Yeah.
The drafting, yeah.
I completely agree. And somebody was saying, so if you're researching, then your draft would actually be more expansive than your outline. I think your outline's actually more expansive than your draft, because you don't know what to outline until you have all the research done. And for me, I don't know what research needs to be done until I've gotten all my ideas out on the page, on the paper. So I think you've got to use whatever process works for you, but I think that's what you're saying, Stephanie, is that.
Well, it's a great example of this really has to do with steps that you don't want to skip, and everyone is going to customize what the steps look like for them. But if you skip a step, that's where people fall into content that they find it isn't working. So all the steps are pretty important, even though you're going to customize the ones that work for your individual content platform.
Yep. Okay, so people ask about avatars. Somebody asked, do we just have one avatar? I have some thoughts on this, but I want you to go first.
Oh, you can go. I mean, I feel like I've, well, you can go. Okay. No, because you have thoughts, and
I'm super passionate about avatars, as you know, because I think if you guys don't know the growth story of ConvertKit and what I did with the ConvertKit team while I was there, we went from, when I signed my contract, we were about 80,000 a month in revenue. And when I left 15 months later, we were almost 750,000 a month in revenue. It was explosive growth over a short period of time. The number one reason that we had that level of explosive growth was because we were very clear on our avatar. And also, this book is one of my favorite books. It's super boring. It's called Extreme Revenue Growth. And you would think it's about all these tactics about building revenue into your company. It's really about your ideal customer, and then your promise, and then your competitive advantage. It's like getting really clear about the avatar is like the first step of extreme revenue growth. Anyways, super passionate about it because it's changed my life having that down. Here's my opinion. If you make less than $1 million a year, you should have one avatar, period. That's my thought. Because at that point, you're still a small business, and you need to have extreme focus on who you are and what you serve and what you do well. And so like the 3 phases of creating, in my opinion, really good content is understanding the avatar, understanding your ideal customer, understanding your promise, and then understanding your competitive advantage. And you lose out on the promise and the competitive advantage if you have multiple avatars, right? Like you just become weak. It becomes more soft. So I'm super passionate about it. My opinion, my strong opinion, if you make less than $1 million a year, you should have one avatar. After that, you can start layering in different avatars, but focus really deeply on one avatar, serving that avatar really well. And again, it's a paradox because you're not just going to serve that one avatar or that one ideal customer. You're actually gonna be able to serve so many people that are kind of ripples or like really small delineations of that avatar. But that's my strong opinion on it. So any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would tell this, what that made me think of was the story of, so when I started out as a freelance editor, I did that on purpose because I saw other people being freelance writers and editors. It was like writer/editor. And from an egotistical standpoint, I wanted to differentiate myself. And I said, I'm only going to be an editor. And that actually had some positive effects. And this is kind of sort of the layers of how avatars work. And this was how I wanted to identify myself. I wasn't thinking about who my client was at all. So I started only positioning myself as an editor. And what I found is that people were contacting me and they didn't need editing work. They needed things. They needed a writer, but they found me because of my editor focus. So it sort of, I mean, this was all an accident. I wasn't planning this, but I did make the mistake of not having an avatar. My avatar found me. I wouldn't recommend going in that way, but my very high, my focus on just positioning myself as an editor, again, coming from an egotistical standpoint, attracted all different types of people to my business, not just people who liked editing. But I would have gotten there faster and arguably would have attracted even more people to my business faster if instead of thinking about how I wanted to look, I thought about what does my client need? And then I would have realized there was a very good reason why people were identifying as writers/editors, because that's what the market wants a lot of the time. So
Yes.
yeah, I find that story helpful a lot of the time.
Okay, I want to keep going. Do you have a few more minutes to stay on a little bit longer than 5
Sure.
or 5? I guess it's 5 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock Eastern. You have a little bit longer.
We
to stay
went
on
like
to answer my
about an hour.
question.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so somebody's asking about. Sorry, I love this thing about the avatars. I low key think this is one of the most important things that people miss out on in marketing. Period. And you and I have talked about this behind the scenes a lot. And I know that we're kind of derailing some of the conversation, but it keeps coming up in questions over here. So if we are interested in personal branding, are we thinking of ourselves as the avatar? And I want to just be clear because I think that might have been a little confusing. I was talking really fast. The only time you think of yourself as the avatar is if you created your business to solve a problem that you had, right? So if you're seeing yourself as a personal brand, then you need to find a different avatar, or you can be a younger version of yourself as that avatar. So for example, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F Word is one of the most popular books of the last, 5 years. It's been on the New York Times list for 200 and some weeks now. That book was written by Mark to a younger version of Mark. So he's a personal brand and he's written content, but he's used a younger version of himself because he's solved problems. And now that he's solved those problems and come out the other side, he now has answers for the younger version of himself. Same thing was true with Nathan Barry of ConvertKit. He created a software that solved the problems he had with email marketing. And now he was selling that tool to other people. So the avatar he was using was a younger version of himself. That is only true where you use yourself as an avatar if you've created a business around solving a problem that you had. Does that make sense? So yes, and Jim, that's a good point. His avatar was one person, and he sold like 7 or 8 million copies of that book. So that just goes to say, um, uh, how powerful that is. So
Well, yeah, it's an example of everything that we're talking about. Look how specific that content is, that book is, and how many people it can reach, or how many people identify with it or resonates with, that he probably didn't intend. That's why I compare content to art so much. You release it, you have no idea the type of people who are going to resonate with it, what it's going to mean to them, how they're going to interpret it for their own usefulness. But I also think with personal branding, as a general thing, it's about you and it's not about you, which is a funny space to exist in. But you need to find the space of and I'm talking about this more in upcoming days. We're getting into a lot of good stuff that I'm going to be covering over the next few days as well. But you need to find the space in between your values and your audience values to create a brand that is an uninhibited, pure version of you, but it's actually serving. And this kind of goes back to the idea of drafting in the space of your content idea and who do I serve and what do I need. I think for a personal brand, everything you do exists in that space.
yeah. Toby, that's a great recommendation. The StoryBrand framework is a great recommendation. I used to work for StoryBrand as well a long time ago. So it's a really great recommendation. That's the framework I use when drafting, is the StoryBrand framework. We don't have time to get into it, but it's a really great book called StoryBrand by Donald Miller. I would recommend checking that out. One last question, Stephanie, and then we're going to be done for today. Sorry that we can't get to all your questions. You guys are amazing. You guys are awesome. This is so fun. Such a lively conversation afterwards. The teaching, I'm super grateful for everybody here. And Stephanie, thanks for being generous with your time. Okay, how do we discover a person's problem, need, or desire using that empathy map?
Okay. Oh, and also with questions, we do have Friday too. So we'll regroup then as well if we haven't gotten to everything. So how do we discover? Well, hopefully you're creating content in the first place to help people. So that empathy map is digging down into actual specific ways that you can help. So the question is, how do you discover their problems? And can you just repeat it? How do you discover their actual problems?
The problems, desires, or needs.
Yeah, okay, this is great because I think it highlights the importance of knowing your audience. So you need to know who you're talking to before you start creating any type of content in the first place. So let me give a specific example, even though I don't know your specific. Do you have a specific topic that you're writing about? If you can, I can get more specific.
They don't say specifically.
That would, yeah. I mean, I could give a more specific answer if I know who you're writing to. Maybe
yeah, I would say
figure out who you're writing to.
I would say a couple of thoughts that I'll put. Somebody just put this in here. One-to-one interviews or calls are a really good way to learn that too. So
right.
If you're lucky enough to have customers already, go to your current customers and just say, hey, can I have 15 minutes? And you can ask a series of questions like, hey, why did you pick me over a competitor? Like what was it that I offered you? What was it that about me stuck out? Hey, what are problems you're trying to solve right now? What are problems you're trying to solve right now? Hey, what is it that my company, my service, my brand has done to help you solve a problem? So some of those things you can do in one-on-one interviews. Also, you can just simply email people and ask that as well. But I would say like the easiest step of all, everybody here is a really good person. I know that because they're here. Empathy is a really good practice to have. Like sit down for 5 minutes and in your mind's eyes, put yourself in the shoes of your avatar. Like just for a second, like put yourself in their shoes. Like think about what they might think and feel. We all empathize on a regular basis with our relationships, with our friends and family. and otherwise, like we don't have to have experienced what somebody else experienced to feel what they might feel, right? So like if somebody has gone through a hard time, I don't have to also have gone through that hard time to empathize with them and feel a certain way. So empathize, that empathy map is really awesome. And I would strongly encourage you to just take 60 seconds and just like get in a quiet place, put your phone down, and just try to feel what your avatar might be feeling in relation to this service or product or offering that you have, or the content you're trying to create. And then you'll be able to create really good content on the backside of it. Because I think empathy is the thing that can take average writers to good writers really quickly, like in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And the cool thing about content marketing is that you don't immediately need to have a product or a service to start building your audience. If you already have something built, you can use content marketing. But if you just have an idea of something that people might like, you can use content marketing to uncover those problems and needs and desires. Because you have a platform for publishing that idea and that experiment. And I say all the time that content marketing is experimenting. And there's another word like experiment. I think you even said the other day, Joe, like I would call it this, but I don't know. Maybe I was talking to someone else. But
I think it was on our webinar. I forget what it was called. But yeah.
Yeah, there was some other, I like calling experiment. There's another good word that I can't think of right now because I always call it experimenting. But you can run with your idea and see if it sticks before you create the product or the service, before you go through the trouble of creating that, because all of that takes a lot of work. You can find if there's even a market for it through content marketing. So if you just start publishing on your blog and you leave comments open, or you start making YouTube videos and you leave comments open, you can find out if your ideas are actually helping people, and from there find out what they would actually pay for to get more help. Because content marketing is the free aspects of content marketing is giving everything that you can away for free, because when your audience wants to go deeper, they will naturally want to buy what you're offering, the paid version of what you're offering. So experimenting to find out problems, needs, and desires is a big part of content marketing. Or this is what we were talking about, Daryl. It's running with an educated idea. You have an educated idea. Yep. An educated guess of what people are struggling with, but you create the content to see if people actually are struggling with it, and you fine tune from there until you really hit those pain points.
Yep. And I would call that, I think I call it intuition.
Yes. On the podcast. We were talking about on the podcast. Yeah.
Yep. And intuition, like you just sometimes you just intuitively know what somebody might need. Like, and again, this goes back to like the human nature of ourselves. And we as humans, like, can sense and have an idea, even if we've not been there, even if we're not there right now, we can have some sort of intuitive way. So Sue asked one last question. I'm just going to answer it really quickly, and then we're going to be done for the day. Where can you publish if you have no blog yet? Medium is a good option, but there are tons and tons of resources about setting up a WordPress site in like 20 minutes or less. It's really easy to do. It's really inexpensive. I would highly, highly, highly recommend setting up a website for yourself. I know that anybody can do this, no matter your skill level. And maybe I'll put some resources in about setting up a website really quickly. But I would set up a website if you can, because lots of things that we can get into later. But you own that content. If you post it on social media or on Medium, they own that content. They can do whatever they want with it later. But set up a website. It's really easy to do. You can do it in just a couple minutes. You can make it better later. Just get it up and start writing. You can make it better later. I've been iterating websites since 2004, and I'm still not happy with my site today. So.
It's a constant process, constant evolution. Yeah.
Constant evolution. So, all right. Thank you for everybody who asked a question. Thank you for all you guys who are here. This is awesome. Can't wait for tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern.